I've got a series of questions I want to pose to both of you, but I note the timing so we can be brief and clear with our answers, please. Bringing now our focus to supporting the essential service that is retail and wholesale in this uncertain future that we've seen. So Jacques, to you first. We've heard obviously a lot from Franck. There are a lot of key insights. Are there any surprises for you? And are there any assumptions that have been confirmed?
No surprise. It's okay. No surprise, only confirmation. And now what's very useful is to have clear figures on what we need, the number, the total on investment, 600 billions of euros in the following years. And we clearly face now a complete revolution. Say transition, I prefer the word of revolution. It's a global revolution. I will just take a few examples of that. When you look at many non-food companies, for instance, as IKEA, as Zara, there are now a quarter of their turnover is online. When you look at these figures, 3 or 4 years ago, it was really very low. They have changed completely. Second example, in the following years, till 2030, in our stores, in food stores, we will sell 20% of our products as bulk products. It means that we won't sell the same products and we won't have the same relations with the suppliers. It will change a lot of things. Third example, we are more and more, and we will be more and more, producer of energy. That's something very new, especially for solar energy. So it's a new job for us. We will be part of the solution, an energy solution, but it needs a lot of investments. For instance, in France, we have a law now on that. In the 3 next years, we will need 10 billion euros just for that. It's the equivalent of the total of investments of retail in France for 1 year. So it means 1/3 more during the next 3 years. I can give you two more examples. The data. Data is becoming so important that Carrefour has announced a few days ago that they will create with Publicis, which is one of the major advertising media, a special company for retail media. And what is very new is the fact that Carrefour will have 51% of this company, and Publicis only 49%. So it means that it's a complete new way of having resources. And the last example, just to show you what means this revolution Franck was telling about, when Franck was speaking about the decarbonation and the scope 3. Scope 3 for instance, food is representing 95%. In these 95%, you have 75% for products and 20% for the use of products. What does this mean? It means that in very few years, we won't sell the same products, but we don't know now exactly which will be the new products. And the use of the products will be completely different. Shampoo, for instance, will need less water tomorrow. But the problem is to invent that. So it means we have seen that for scope 1 and 2, which is only 5%, it represents 300 billions of euros. You see what that represents at the total. We have to imagine a new world, and we have no time because it's in 2050 for the last, but we have to cut by 55% in 2030, and 2030 is tomorrow and maybe today.
Okay, so duly noted that no surprises for you?
No surprise. The only surprise was about the fact that the the US figures are clearly better than ours.
Okay, well, let's put that a competitive challenge to look at there, or at least a stimulus. But I take that you also note this concept very much of a revolution, not gradual evolution, but urgent revolution that's happened and will continue to happen in the short-term future as well. So, Franck, turning to you then, I mean, obviously, you've got the insights from the study, but let me take you back to when you first started the study. And relative to that, did the study produce any surprises or confirm any particular assumptions from McKinsey's perspective?
So let me first say that you have two French people on the stage, so that's why we're talking about revolution, right? That's a bit
Allez.
We are specialists.
Allez, Franck, allez.
No, so so for me the big surprise was actually on the sustainability part, right? I think the 40% of the emission within the total value chain was actually a number that I didn't expect, right? I think if you would have asked me, I would have said 15, 20. So this was kind of a shock, right? Because this is changing now, but you could argue that sustainability was not so much on the agenda of many actually retailers and wholesalers a few years ago, right? And so clearly this changed a lot over the last 4 years. And indeed, the fact that it's only 5% indirect control was also the second one, right? And the need of working together as a value chain, from the farming to the store, as actually we are just saying about how you develop product, without mentioning that private label is a significant part now of what people are selling, and this is increasing with the current crisis as people are trading down. So it's not only scope 1 for just distribution, but you have also the need of addressing this agenda as part of your private label offering. And I think it's going to be indeed an exciting time of innovation. Technology also is changing, so all the economics we are doing now actually are probably going to be much better in like 3 to 4 years, right, when the technology is going to be more affordable. So that's going to be a very dynamic space probably.
Yeah, but noted there you're saying obviously about the sustainability part. So do you think then those figures that surprised you yourself as well, I imagine surprised some in the sector too, does that then suggest that the whole sustainability agenda needs further prioritization at board level within the sector?
I think indeed having a proper P&L and managing somehow the performance of a company, not only from growth and profitability, but also footprint is a must. And obviously this has a lot of implication, could be quite complex. But once again, I see actually this moving very quickly. I mentioned now ability, for example, when we are helping retailer to do optimization of assortment now, you have actually the sustainability score within the assortment, so you not only look at how much growth and profit you're going to bring, but how you will improve the sustainability footprint. So this is changing a lot, and probably the attention now is there, and it's more about now to make it happen.
I took also from the study that you presented a strong focus on your side in terms of sustainability as well, about how you showed that a significant minority of the cases representing a majority of the value also show that focus on sustainability does bring value as well. Yeah.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is also an opportunity. First, it's a need to build some resilience and make sure that your brand will still be there, right, in a couple of years. So it's how also you are making your company future-proof. And indeed, this could be also a source of value. I mean, what you mentioned about investing in production of energy is a very interesting source of value, right? When you think about how many parking space and building and all the related parts, it's huge, right?
Yeah, indeed. Jacques, I'm coming back to you then. I mean, from a certain perspective, as a well-informed outsider to the sector, as I am as the moderator, it seems to me that Franck painted, to a degree, a little bit of a dark picture of the current economic outlook. We heard from Juan as well. We all know about soaring inflation, historically high energy prices. What do you see as the primary effect on the sector and consumers of this high inflation, spiking energy price scenario?
I think first that what Franck says, unfortunately, the reality. Situation is not very easy. I say dark situation. Just before speaking about the consequences, maybe three things. First, there is not only one retail sector. There are many retail sectors, as there is not only one consumer. For instance, last month in the food stores in France, hypermarkets and so on, the increase of food products was plus 8% in value, but with an inflation of 12, so it's not so good. But when you look at non-food products, it was minus 4. When you look at the difference, it's quite very different. Second thing is the fact that this crisis is coming after other crises, especially the COVID crisis. And in France, unfortunately, we had the other social crisis before. And the third thing is the fact that energy crisis is a bit different from what we had, for instance, at the beginning of the Ukraine war in 22, because the increase of cost of energy is on all the level of the value chain, and especially for us. And that's quite different from wheat price increase, for instance, which is at the first level, and then we discuss about the repercussions. What are the changes of this situation? First, decline in volumes. It begins, and it's especially impressive, for instance, for fresh products. For fish, for instance, it's minus 25%. For meat, it's between 10 and 15%. Fruit and vegetables, it's minus 10%. Dairy products, it's minus 5%. So it's the beginning of something very important and not very positive for agriculture, for instance, and for many European producers. Second is the shift to low price products. First, they go from some national brands to our brands, and now more and more first price products. Third one is the fact that we have new behaviors. For instance, second hand is more and more important, renting products and so on. So it changed a lot. We see for clothing, for instance, it was 3% 4 years ago. Now it's more than 15%. So it changed a lot, of course, for this retail sector. Fourth is the fact that it's really very, very more and more difficult for our supplier. So it means we have more and more breakage in our stores. For instance, around 10% in France. From the beginning of the year, it means that we have lost in our stores more than 5 billion euros because the products were not on the shelves. And that will be more and more difficult. And last, of course, what Franck says, our margins are fallen because we are unable to pass the increase of our cost to our clients. So when you look at all that, it means that the situation is really very difficult.
Yeah. I'm going to move on a little bit now from talking about the macroeconomic situation and focus you both a little, keeping an eye on time, also on feasibility and process now. I mean, one of the standout numbers, obviously, from the study is the 600 billion. That's a huge number, I think we can all recognize when we look at it in the scope of up to 2030. So for both of you, perhaps Franck, starting with you briefly, and then Jacques, on to you. How feasible is this level of investment in this timescale?
So clearly, it's going to be a challenge, right? And we have shown the level of profitability that the sector has. And it will require some reinvestment. So here it's not a management issue. For me, it's more a shareholder issue. Hence, the necessity to have this dialogue as part of the strategic planning, right? Because there is so much that the manager can do at some point. It's also a company belongs to someone, and it should be a shareholder discussion primarily. Second thing is that probably this will require some reallocation of investment. And this is probably where a bit the tricky part is, because you look today at, if you have this information plus the fact that 90% of the growth will be online, it means that today a significant part of the investment is going to maintain the store, right? It could be compliance, could be refurbishment. And we need to invest into the store because the mission of the store is going to change, right? From being a place, I mean, many stores didn't change in the last 10 or 20 years, right? But I think we are at a time where they need to change because they have a different role for the shopper behavior, right? They will be a center of fulfillment in order to deliver the area. There will be an area of more experience. So clearly we'll have some trade-off to be done, and solution will be probably to rethink a bit the role of the store and the real estate part. And this is something that actually we are not talking so often. I mean, it's a bit happening below the radar, but there are actually some significant move on the commercial real estate part, right? So company divesting some of their real estate, people a bit rethinking their network in order to free up some investment. In order to invest into the supply chain, into the people, into the sustainability and so on. But it's not going to be enough. And maybe Jacques can comment, but the maths are not squared, right, at the moment.
So for you at the moment, the maths are not squared, they're not adding up. Well, Jacques, how about you in terms of feasibility for this 600 billion of investment by 2030?
The figures are gigantic. And it's clear that we have not the possibility to finance all by ourselves. So it means that we need money from the different states, from European Union and so on spatial projects. And we must be considered as what we are. We are the first employer in Europe, but not only in Europe, in every place, in every country. We are at the heart of many subjects, the employment of young people and non-qualified people, of the subject of the future of the towns, and the subject of inflation, of course. And when you look at the figures, we have made the same exercise in France, and results were these ones. The average margin, for instance, for food retailers is between 1% and 2% in the good years, and now it's really less than that. We need to double our capex from 2% of the turnover to 4%. And how is it possible with 1% of margin to finance 2% more? And when you compare these figures to other industries where the rate of capex is clearly much more important, and even in our sector, for instance, to a company as Amazon, Amazon has a figure of investment which is 12% of the turnover. So our problem is now to have clearly priority from Europe and from our national governments on specific projects to help us to do that, because if we have not that, I think that will be a very hard situation.
So there's an opportunity there with the right support. Let me just mine in on that just very quickly then. So if you had some priority recommendations for EU level and also national level policymakers, but first focus at the EU level, what would be perhaps your priority recommendations in that type of support that's needed?
In EuroCommerce, in our board, we have worked on that, and we have identified 5 main priorities. The first one is digitalization. It means all concerning the value chain, automation technologies, IT architecture, e-commerce, supply chain, and so on. The second one is to modernize stores and warehouses. It's what Franck said, because you can't put all the money for e-commerce. Of course, we need to invest more in our stores to attract people and to tell them, come. Pleasure to come in our stores must be the heart of our priorities. The third one is, of course, net zero. As we said, we have no choice, first. And second, it's clearly much important because we are responsible for 5% only. But our consumers, think that we are responsible for 100%.
Indeed, this was a key fact that I noted in the study about the differentiation between direct emissions that the sector is in fact capable of influencing with its actions and those embedded within the value chain. Yeah.
And we can see, for instance, one company as Carrefour has decided a few days ago to say that in 2026, they will have only in their stores products coming from companies on the way on the net zero. It means a complete change of linked between the supplier and the retailer, and that's maybe the beginning of a new story on that. And the two last points are, of course, about the circularity. For instance, I'm the chairman of the audit committee in the French system. We have double our spendings on these subjects for now, and it will be more and more important. And the last point is, of course, about skills. And as Franck says, skilling, upskilling, and reskilling are the 3 points. We will clearly have maybe decline needs in non-qualified jobs, but we will need more and more qualified jobs, and we have to train these people.
Okay, noted. Now I'm going to wrap things up now and take us into that break. First, Franck, a quick answer from you, and on Jacques, I'll come back to you. So, Franck, obviously, your role at McKinsey, it's not for you to give the indications to the policymakers, but the sector itself. So if you had to distill from the study 2 or 3 key indications for the retail and wholesale sector in Europe, what would they be from your side?
So the first message is not resilience or transformation, is really build resilience and accelerate transformation. So look at both. And my second piece of advice will be make sure that it's on top of your CEO and shareholder agenda. So make sure that you have an open discussion about the way forward, rather than thinking, incrementally year on year about what is changing.
So because there's urgency, it needs to be an urgent
because
priority.
It's so significant that you cannot just incrementally think. You really need to say, this is where I want to be in 2030, right? And this is the implication on my model. I mean, as said Jacques, right? People are going to sell different things, so it has implication of on many aspects of even your economic model.
Yeah. Okay, and Jacques, a final word from you? Again, towards both the sector and the policymakers?
First, we have no choice but to invest more and to transform ourselves. That's clear. If we don't do that, there is clear risk. Second, it's a European subject and not only national one. It's too easy to say every country must take decisions. It must be a European project. And third one, we have no time because, as we said, all that is for 2030. 2030 is tomorrow, and we need decisions really in the following months. If we do not do that, there is clearly a risk, especially for employment. We are the first employer.
Yeah. Okay, noted. So then I take from that very much urgency, but also opportunity too. With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, can we offer a round of applause for our 2 speakers?